Coach, it seemed to be a microcosm of the season. The turnovers leading the points. Uh, Bad third quarter where you gave up 43. Is that how, would you agree with that sort of assessment how the game went tonight?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the third quarter was the game. We had a lead at halftime, and we didn't come out, kind of meet their level of aggressiveness. You know, Multiple turnovers that lead to baskets early into the bonus. Just a third quarter that was the difference in the game tonight.
Coach, obviously, when you look at the season in totality, I know you don't want to do that, but I'm just looking at it overall. Um, how are you dealing with what you're dealing with this kind of season?
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping tonight you get the win, and the game on Friday means something. It's pretty raw right now. It's pretty fresh. It's been tough. There's no doubt about it. We haven't been as good as we need to be, as we expect it to be. So we got to process it. We got to learn from it. All of us got to figure out how to take this and be better going forward.
The only other thing I had was just looking at the way the NBA is with these coaches, guys getting let go. This you're the third coach in 3 years here. How are you looking at? Have you been assured by Ishbia that you'll be back next year?
No, like I said, it's raw. We just lost. It's been a tough season. There's been no conversations. So, we'll process this and we'll figure out how we can be better.
Coach, when you look at the season, it feels like everyone has been able to label the areas where you guys need to be better, but weren't able to actually get there. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, it's you can't put your finger on it. There's not a magic message. There's not a magic video clip. You got to go out and do things. We got to put them in better positions. We got to give them more solutions. And then you got to go out and kind of make the plays. So, we got to do all those things. But there's no explanation for why we couldn't get there.
Looking ahead, I know you had said with KD, it depends on whether he's healthy, obviously, but also this game. Has there been any conversation about him or Book or any of the other main players for Friday's game?
No. I think we'll take the next 24 hours or so and, figure out what we want to do, especially with KD. And again, just his ankle, I don't know if he'd even be available if it was, different circumstances.
Coach, I know it's a bit too soon to ask, but considering that you guys are out of the playoffs, is there any kind of motivation that you and the guys might have to finish out the rest of the season?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to have some pride. We're professionals. We need to come and play Friday. There's other teams that have probably been in similar circumstances for longer, and you come play, you come, work on as a team getting better, work on individually getting better. It's competition. We got a chance to come play a game on Friday, so we need to come and compete and embrace it, and we'll decide between now and Friday, exactly what that looks like. But you got to come play and perform.
Devin has felt like a microcosm of the season in terms of a bad quarter, turnovers leading to points. Just how would you assess the way this game went, considering the way you guys jumped out to a lead there?
I think they turned up the physicality and, turned us over and got, easy looks in transition. 15 free throws in the third quarter. That's tough to fight back from.
Curious, I know you've talked about it all, this last couple of weeks or last week or so about the way the season is and where you guys are and looking to be better and those things. But now that you're out of play-in consideration, how are you wrapping that around your head?
It's been a slow bleed out. I've been feeling this way for majority of the season. I think the small glimpses of, good stretches that we've played, I know gave me hope and probably gave everybody else hope. So, you never want it to be that you're squeezing into the last spot of the play-in in the first place. So, kind of expected at this point.
Book, this is the first time since 2020 that you haven't been in the playoffs. What do you feel needs to change from this season going to next in order to get back to that stage again?
More than one thing. But, it's the time, the summertime is to digest and, look back, see what went wrong, compare it to, when things were going right, and vocalize that.
Going into Friday with you guys being eliminated, or do you think you'll be able to play in that game, or is it kind of a now that the season's over type situation?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm healthy, but, might give the young guys the opportunity to go out there and, play through them and let them feel that and get some growth.
Look, at the trade deadline, I think you guys were right around 500, and then since then, 10 and 20. Can you put your finger on just what has happened over that stretch?
I mean, I think our schedule picked up also. I think after that moment, we had the toughest remaining schedule. We were squeezing by early in the season, start out 9-1. And we might have got a little bit ahead of ourselves. So we have to continue to learn throughout the season, through wins and through losses. Just know what you're preparing for, and all the little things come together and they matter.
Book, knowing how much you love basketball, do you reach a point here where it's almost kind of need to get away from the sport for a little bit?
Get away from the sport?
Yeah.
Nah. Nah. Probably start open gym right after the season.
Book, when you consider just how important, building a culture and an identity is to winning, do you feel like you guys kind of built like an adequate culture this season?
I think that's one of the steps that, we skip. Like I was saying, learning through the wins and the losses, and, just continue to get better, every day, no matter what the circumstances are. And like I said, we had spots where we did it, but it has to be something that's turned on at all times.
Book, you hit on this a bit yesterday, but when you look at the Dallas series 3 years ago to now, and just sort of the spiral that has ensued, not so much what you attribute it to, but what you take away from what has happened over the last 3 years, and the changes that occurred that kind of led you guys to being in this position.
What's the question? What's
Just
changed from then to now?
Yeah, what do you think has changed the most from 3 years ago until now?
I mean, it's a whole different setup. We have different players, we have different coaches, so it's totally opposite. It's a new system.
Are you able to pick back up on like bubble and like a little bit pre-bubble with the successful steps you guys got to building a culture and take that into next year?
Yeah, that's going to be on my mind a lot because I watched it happen. And like I said, it's an everyday thing, and you have to harp on it. Everybody has to hold each other accountable, and, it makes it better. The culture, the environment's better no matter whether you win or lose. You don't get too high and you don't get too low. That's what I figured out during that time, and, it eventually all gelled together. So, we just got to get after it every day.
Book, I'm just kind of curious, what are some of the areas maybe you specifically or individually feel like maybe you struggled with this year that you can try to bounce back from next year?
I don't think I shot the ball well this year. Just win games, at all costs, try and power my will on, on the other team and, my teammates at the same time, being a leader, using my voice more. Yeah, pretty much everything when you fall this short.
Just to follow up on something you mentioned, answering Dwayne, you said vocalizing a lot of this that's on your mind. Are you saying more of that with regard to your teammates, or maybe the people around the organization that are making decisions?
Everybody.